Yep, I have no idea what's going on here, but it looks real cool. Yep, this is our review. I need to preface this review by saying I've never watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I never played JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle on PlayStation 3. My only exposure to JoJo was spending a small amount of time with the Capcom published CyberConnect 2 developed JoJo's Bizarre Adventure on Dreamcast. But we're talking over 20 years ago, so I'm effectively coming in fresh, judging this purely as a fighter I could potentially enjoy. It's interesting to think that this came out only 2 months before Killer Instinct in 2013, and 2 years after Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and I have to wonder how this game would have done had it been attached to a less niche property. As the original did on Dreamcast, JoJo takes a lot of inspiration from Marvel vs. Capcom, and it's immediately apparent when you play it. It's somewhat less chaotic to actually play, but the on-screen action can appear even crazier with the anime-inspired visual splendor on display. It's also quite interesting to see that CyberConnect 2 developed both the Dreamcast original, the PlayStation 3 sequel, and the current remaster. I feel like this has meant we got a super solid port of the game, and my brief research of the PlayStation 3 titles shows that it's been translated beautifully from the original. But as someone who had never watched the anime, I did my best to briefly catch up on the franchise's history both in anime and video games, and it really does seem like CyberConnect 2 have managed to not only faithfully refresh their fighting game series, but also captured JoJo's extravagant style and really brought the manga to life as a fighting game. Having played a lot of fighting games over the last 30 years, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure felt fairly familiar, as most of the standards Capcom introduced to us throughout the many versions of Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom were all in place here, which makes sense given Capcom published and most likely oversaw the original Dreamcast game. There are some subtle differences in the control scheme that some may need to adjust to. Most players these days, at least the more casual fighting fan, are more accustomed to the high, medium, low combination of punches and kicks. JoJo eschews that and goes for the more SNK inspired high, medium, low attack, as well as dodge, which many Sega fans will remember from Virtua Fighter. It won't take most long to acclimatise, but I did however find myself pressing incorrect buttons every now and again, but I put that down to muscle memory on Capcom fighters more than anything. Speaking of niche, maybe it's down to my time zone, but I simply couldn't find an online match to try out how the game performs, which is really unfortunate. While I don't expect many, if any, games to ever reach the level of Killer Instinct Online, at the very least, for a more complete review, it would have been good to see how it fared. It has to be said that I personally feel the visual style and flair is where JoJo really shines. CyberConnect 2 really went to great lengths to make this game feel like Hirohiko Araki's manga comic come to life. Man, I hope I pronounced that right. Characters are big, bold, and expertly infuse that hand-drawn, almost cel-shaded look to them. Special moves and ultras finishes are suitably over the top and carry that heavy anime influence that can often have you simply staring hypnotically at the screen as you watch your super move play out. The only real knock on the visuals are the animations, which can be a bit stiff, and it felt to me like it almost affected how well the fights themselves flowed. But that could have been my imagination. It's also understandable that they probably didn't think it would be worth the cost benefit to completely overhaul the animations on a near decade-old niche fighting game port. The options on offer here are pretty standard fare. Arcade versus practice and all-star battle is sort of your story mode where you get to work your way through a bunch of scenarios. For example, fighting a character who replenishes their life periodically. It's an interesting spin on a more traditional story mode, but clearly takes some inspiration from Street Fighter Alpha 3's World Tour mode, which is never a bad thing. Overall, JoJo is a pretty solid fighter and a pretty good upgraded port to boot. Some may find the price somewhat prohibitive given the semi-bare bones modes on offer, combined with the fact that we are ultimately talking about a port of a niche near decade old fighter, but if you can look past that, there's fun to be had. JoJo manga/anime fans should definitely be giving this a go. And as always, if you like our stuff, please like, subscribe, follow us on our socials, and if you don't mind sparing a coffee a month, support us on Patreon, and of course be sure to visit XboxEra.com for more. Ciao for now.